What gets me out of bed in the morning is an attempt to do something difficult that is beyond my skills or my equipment or my budget and try to make it happen. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know which category this goes into. It's been a dream of mine to build a trail across this rock hill. And it's a dream that I didn't really think was possible. But now it's done. And I want to talk about the best way to do it. The purpose of these videos is that if you have a similar project to do, I want to help you choose the right machine for that job. So I just completed phase 1 of my trail build project. And I hope you guys aren't bored with that trail build because I'm going to spend all summer on it. I'm going to straighten it, I'm going to reroute it, I'm going to widen it, I'm going to top dress it, flatten it. It's going to be an ongoing thing that's going to use a lot of different equipment and a lot of different techniques, and hopefully it's a learning process for me and for you guys. Today I want to talk about the most common set of comments that I get while doing this, and I'm not just going to talk about it. I want to show you the differences between different machines trying to accomplish this same work. And we're also going to walk the trail because we got flood level rains. Like, I've been on this property 5 years. This is the most flooded I've ever seen our property, is the last 2 days. So I want to see the way water's running on it and the way it's washing out or not washing out. But I've already done that once. I don't want to make this whole video about that. We're going to start, before showing the trail, I'm going to show my attempt to start this trail right over here 2 years ago with a John Deere 325G tracked skid steer. That's a machine that I paid $100,000 for with attachments. It came with several attachments. Brand new machine, and me giving my best effort to build this trail with that machine and giving up and saying this machine is not the right machine to do this job. Now, as I do that, I want you guys to tell me if, well, you're just doing it wrong. So that's why it wasn't working very well, what I could have done different. But I also want you to try to understand where I'm coming from. So we'll start with that, then we'll show the other methods. So to begin with, this is a test area that is about 50 feet from where I was standing in the intro of my video. Just right up at the top right corner of the screen is where I was standing when I was just talking about this project. And the area I'm working on right now is not nearly as rocky as the area where this trail has to go. As a matter of fact, these rocks might have been better left where they were, because, you know, for the prospects of a trail, these weren't hurting anything. But, believe it or not, they're sticking up far enough that it was hard to mow this area. So I was removing these rocks as a test to see if I could make this area where I could mow it with my zero-turn mower instead of mowing it with a brush cutter up in the air. And what you'll see as we go through this is that an area that didn't look that rocky is actually just solid rock. I would say if you dug a hole here that was 4 foot deep and 20 foot around, and then separated all the dirt from the rock, you're at least 50% rock and 50% dirt. Up on the hill, it's about 75% rock and 25% dirt. And that soil composition comes down to why I lean towards the mini excavator for this job. So we took ground right here that wasn't that rocky, and we've turned it into a rock pile. And what happens is, you see a rock that looks like it's just setting on the ground and you just want to push it out of the way. You're really not trying to dig at all. But turns out that rock is 3 foot in diameter, and pushing that rock out gives you a giant hole. Now, if you had 200 tons of topsoil or fill dirt ready to fill in those holes, that could be the next step of your process. But the whole point of my project is to do this without spending any money. And I may dig more borrow pits to rob dirt from other parts of my property, but I'm not buying dirt, and I'm not renting machines. I'm not buying anything.
I'm making this trail as close to free as I can possibly make it. So as you look at it right now, it looks a lot worse than it did when I started, after I've been working on it for probably 15 minutes. And in a minute, we're going to give my live reaction to what I thought about this process, because I was using this to gauge whether or not I could build a trail 1,000 foot long. Now, this is an interesting point in the video, because you just saw me shaking the bucket. What you get when you work with it like this, even though this grapple I'm using it as a rock bucket, it has huge slats in it to allow dirt to pass through. But even with a rock bucket, that dirt doesn't just fall out. You have to violently shake this machine to get the rocks to separate from the dirt. And when you're doing just a few scoops of dirt, that's no big deal. But if you want to build a 1,000-foot trail through a rock hill, then every scoop of dirt, you're going to have to lift that machine up and shake the machine. And these are, sturdy machines that are built to work. They've got crazy lift capacities on them, but they do wear out. And when you spend the amount of money on a machine that I spent on this skid steer, the idea that I'm going to have thousands and thousands of buckets of dirt and lift that up in the air and shake it until all the dirt separates from the rock doesn't feel like a good plan. And as you see me pushing into this, the machine is groaning and fighting to work its way through. And as you're looking at it right now, you're probably thinking, okay, this has worked. He's got that just about leveled out. But the area I've got leveled out is a small area. And essentially what I've done is dig a hole, and it is in worse shape after this project than it was when I started. You're also seeing the skid steer work in ideal conditions because I have flat ground to work off of. When I tried to take this up the hill, it was a whole different ball game, and it struggled a lot worse than what you're seeing right now. Another interesting side note, just in general, a lot of people have had the debate within my comment section, would I rather have a skid steer or a mini excavator? And when I had the skid steer, I thought maybe the answer was mini excavator. But now that I've had both, I would rather have this skid steer any day of the week over an excavator. If it was one or the other, I'm taking the skid steer. But for this project, I think it's the excavator.
Okay, let's take a look at the result here. Huge rock here. Huge rock. Huge rock, huge. Absolutely giant rocks, this entire area. So basically, I just took 30 minutes of working that skid loader pretty hard, beating it up actually, trying to force these rocks out. And the percentage, the ratio of rocks to dirt is too high. And we're not even up the hill yet. This is down from where I started. And it's like, if you have a bowl like this and it's 75% rock, you can't remove all the rock. All you've done is dig a hole, and right under that hole is more rocks. So there's really nothing I could do here. If I had a mini X with a thumb, I could pick out individual rocks that way a lot better, and then I would have to bring in dirt. But nothing I have is going to solve this problem that I can see.
So this is one of 3 times I tried to work on this project with the skid steer, and at the end of that, my conclusion at the time was I needed a mini excavator.
All right, so what do you think? Could I have taken that machine and done 1,000 foot of trail across the rock hill, or was it the wrong machine? Now let's look a little bit at the state of the trail right now, and then we're going to go into how the excavator has performed and whether or not a bulldozer would have been better. So my trail is not washed out. I definitely wouldn't use those terms, but water is running right down the center of the trail. And if water is making a path down the trail, right here we've got a river, If it's making a path, it's not if it washes out, it's when. And we have water running down there. We have water running down here. So the biggest problem with any project is what are you going to do with the water? Now, if grass was growing across this, the time it would take this to erode would be 5 times as long as if it's bare dirt. Without a root structure from that grass, you know you're going to wash out quicker. But this part, all of this was dug by a mini excavator. So let's look at how that performed. Pros and cons.
So I have a lot of different clips I could show you of working on this trail with the mini excavator, but I'm choosing this clip because this is right next to where I was digging with the skid steer. We're about 50 foot uphill where the rocks get thicker and bigger. And this is the very first real progress made on the trail. Now, if you keep in mind that I was driving in circles all around the work area with the skid steer, and you really can't do that once you get up into the thicker part of the rocks. You cannot drive uphill of the problem and then work your way down once you get up there. You have to be able to work up the hill. So the key here is that machine can choose to pick up rocks and leave the dirt. Now, doing this work is still kind of slow and time consuming, and I guess you could say it's hard on the machine, but there's not any violent, unnatural shaking movements that are going to beat up those pins worse. And we're not removing more material than we need to remove. So the goal here is to remove the rock without removing dirt. And that's where I think this machine shines, because it lets you pick through the material and take out what you want to take out and leave what you want to leave. So the idea that I can just take the sheer brute force of a skid steer and just power through this would only work if the rocks were sitting on top of the ground and what was under them was dirt. But because we're getting protruding rocks that need removed, but are buried pretty deep, that's why I think it works better. Even though it's not as fun, that's why I think it works better to use a mini excavator. Now, it's also tedious to pick through and pick up those rocks, especially in this instance. We were trying to load them into a bucket, and that really slowed things down. And using the ripper to do the digging made it a little bit more precise about not removing more dirt than you wanted, but it was also more awkward to operate that way. So any machine that has tracks and is used for grading basically requires that the tracks set on flat ground. If you can get one perfectly flat area and then work out from there, you can maintain that grade. But if you're trying to start on rough ground, you just can't grade because your bucket will follow the angle of the tracks. So when you look at the finished result here, the trail that we've just established doesn't sit much lower than the surrounding ground because we didn't remove dirt. We only removed rock. And that's the difference between using a chainsaw and a scalpel to do cutting.
Okay, so you can see that where the excavator shines is in the ability to sort material. And that's not everything, I guess, but it's not nothing either. And now as we walk up along this trail, I'm trying to step only on the rocks. You can see water from here is running down there, and some of it is running over this way instead of across here. So I like to come up here when it's raining like this and when it's been raining hard and look at where's the water going, where do I want it to go, and try to make a plan for how to improve. Now I was wanting to straighten this out and have it shoot straight across there, But a couple people told me if I straighten it out, that'll just lead to more washouts. And I'm sure that's true. But the way my mind goes is, I want to make the trail in the shape that I want the trail to be, and then, once the trail is made, worry about mitigating water. Does that make sense, or should I be shaping the trail where I have to go real slow around it? Which could be a problem, like if I'm backing a dump trailer up here or something, or hauling out a log. Like if I've got a 20-foot log that I'm dragging behind the tractor, or different scenarios, it can be an advantage to have a straight trail. So should I be focusing on that now, or worry about water mitigation after the fact? So when we talk about building a trail in this video, we're talking about a trail through an area that looks like this. So the finished product I have right now is really rough, and it's going to need dirt brought in top. And that's where the conversation comes with a bulldozer. If you took a bulldozer across this, and wait a minute, let me back up. I don't know a darn thing about bulldozers. So Brock, why don't you bring a bulldozer on? I have a good reason and a bad reason, and a reason why it all might be BS that I'm saying. Because I have no experience with bulldozers. Literally zero. I've never ran one. Never even been on a project where one was running. So I have no opinion, but from watching videos and my understanding of what a bulldozer would do on this property, I see a couple problems. Number one, a lot of times a rock is sticking up out of the ground 5 inches, and I want that rock out. Well, when that bulldozer blade hits it and pushes it out, I mean, it might shear it off, but for the most part, it's going to rip that rock out of the ground, and now that rock is tumbling along and getting shoved off to the side, but that hole might have been 3 foot deep. So that's the problem I run into with any of this clearing, is that under the rock is just more rocks. Oh gosh, it's treacherous to walk this when it's muddy, which leads to the next point. When this is done, it just can't be left dirt. But the end result after I work on this is it's really rough and it needs to be leveled out. Well, I think that would be the result if I had a bulldozer here. But a bulldozer would be ripping out all of these rocks. The problem is that under these rocks is more rocks. So the next thing about a bulldozer is it destroys everything in its path. And sometimes you want a scalpel instead of a chainsaw. Now this is rough. This isn't precision work here. So this looks more like it was done with a chainsaw than a scalpel, but I'm able to pick my way through and navigate around things that I do want to leave and things that I don't want to leave. So I can specifically say, I want to leave that tree, but take that one out, so we're gonna redirect the trail a little bit. If you just run a bulldozer across here, you can't do that. Like this tree here, do we want that tree? So part of my made up reason for not wanting a bulldozer is the finished result. I want to make a way across this, but I don't want to demolish everything. But the real answer is, what do you guys think this trail is costing me? And I know some people are going to have a different way of looking at it, and you're going to say, well, your time is worth $50 an hour. Well, I'm on the clock while I'm doing my trail because I record it all. But honestly, I think a lot of us are doing these kind of projects in time that we would be sitting on the couch watching TV, and instead we're out here getting work done. So in that instance, I don't think my time is worth a nickel. Now, if I hated doing it, then my time is pretty valuable. But to build all of this, I spent $100, less than $100 on fuel to go from here, 1,000 foot across my property. I spent $100 on fuel, put a dozen hours on machines. You want to depreciate the machine at $25 an hour? Then I guess
I've got about $300 in machine depreciation.
And this doesn't apply to everybody, but these machines are provided to me to use. So it cost me almost literally nothing to do this trail. So we've got a little bit of depreciation. To get a bulldozer out here, you're gonna spend $10,000. And it is a dream of mine to have this trail, but it's not a $10,000 dream. And you know why that is? Because I don't have $10,000. Now, if I was a rich guy, or if I was making $250,000 a year, or whatever, man, I could just hire somebody. But as it is, I'm trying to make something happen that I can't afford to do. I mean, isn't that the dream? To use your own labor and your skills you've developed and equipment you've acquired to do things you otherwise couldn't do, rather than saying, well, for $10,000 I can do anything I want. Just hire someone with a big machine. Now, renting a bulldozer sounds awesome. The only problem is I have never used a bulldozer. So what would happen if I go rent a bulldozer and just come out here and be like, well, I guess I'll figure this out? I bet it wouldn't be a very smooth operation. So what I've got is essentially a free version of a dream project. And the bulldozer solutions to me are a fairy tale. I can't even wrap my head around what it would look like. So it is what it is. Now I want to hear from you guys. What's the best machine for this? I think a lot of times the answer is the one that you have is the best machine. So I'm going to find a different way to get down off this hill that doesn't require me to walk through that mud. I'm going to try to. But for now, I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.